Welcome to Mindful Leadership, Transforming Lives, with your host, Singh. This is where leadership meets purpose, presence, and passion. In today's fast-paced, high-pressure world, we face a leadership crisis. Too often, teams are led by managers who lack empathy, clarity, and vision, leaving individuals uninspired, disconnected, and undervalued. But it doesn't have to be this way. Great leadership isn't born, it's built. The end game: empower your leadership, inspire the world. Every week, join me, your host Singh, as we tackle the gaps in leadership and life coaching head on, learning how mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and compassion can redefine success. This isn't just another podcast, it's a mission to fill the void left by ineffective leadership. And it's not just about leadership in business. Life coaching for leaders and new executives is at heart of this journey. Ready to rise above the noise and lead with clarity, purpose, and impact? Join a global movement dedicated to reshaping the future of leadership one mindful moment at a time. Let's begin.
Welcome back to another episode of Mindful Leadership on Transformation Network, the podcast where we turn stress into strategy, overthinking into clarity, and overwhelm into momentum. I am your host, Singh, the leadership coach who knows that growth does not happen through burnout, it happens through alignment. So let's begin. Today, let's pause for a moment and ask a simple question. Are you leader whose head always rules, crunching numbers, focused on data, and obsessed with strategy? Or do you lead from the heart, letting every decision hinge on intuition, gut feelings, and maybe even a touch of emotion? Neither extreme holds the sweet spot. Lean into heavily on logic, and you risk being cold and disconnected, calculated but uninspiring. Favor emotions too much, and your leadership might seem unpredictable or overly sentimental. The key is to recognize that effective leadership is not about choosing one over the other. Good leadership emerges at the intersection of reason and emotion. The art is in knowing when to draw on logic and when to trust your intuition, creating a dynamic blend that inspires confidence, solves problems, and moves teams forward. It is important to recognize that neither extreme, relying on solely logic nor exclusively on emotion, represent effective leadership. Leaders who operate with excessive rationality, detached, while those who depend too heavily on emotions, overly sensitive. The most successful leaders understand when to apply analytical thinking, when to draw emotional intelligence, and most importantly, how to combine both approaches to build trust and address challenge. And today, I'm going to show you how. We are breaking down the neuroscience of decision making. Don't worry, no pop up quiz. We are just diving into the balance method for navigating emotionally charged situations and looking at some hilarious real life examples of leaders who have nailed it and those who have completely missed the mark. By the end of this episode, you will know exactly how to find the leadership sweet spot where your head and heart works together like peanut butter and jelly. So let's begin. Let's start with some brain science. For decision making, your brain relies on two key systems: distinct players that collaborate but sometimes seem disconnected. Think of it like the Avengers. Great individually, but things get interesting when they try to work together, right? So, your first player in the brain's dynamic duo is the prefrontal cortex, the logical center of your brain, the one that analyzes, strategizes, and calculates risk. It's a part of your brain saying, hey, let's spend $50 at Target and only buy hand soap and paper towels. You know, that's totally reasonable. And then there is player number two, the limbic system or your emotional center. It is where your processes, feelings, excitement, frustrations, Or that weird mix of rage and sadness when someone eats that light love pizza, just leaves the box empty and open. Now here's the twist. Neuroscience shows that the best decisions happens when these two parts work together. This is straight out of Damasio's research, Antonio Damasios. He found that people who lose access to their emotional centers, like medically, can't make decisions at all. Even if their logic is perfectly intact, they cannot pick between chicken or fish at dinner. Why? Because emotions gives you the why behind the what. Here's where things get messy. Most leaders lean way too hard on one side or the other. So there is a robot leader, all logic, no emotions. This leader is out here with spreadsheets for everything. They will track your bathroom breaks in Excel if you let them. They're great at analyzing data, but terrible at building trust. And then you have those overfeelers, all emotions, no logic. This leader is basically the office empath. Every decision is based on vibes, and every team meeting feels like group therapy. Deadlines, optional. Boundaries, what boundaries? Now, neither of this is the sweet spot. The best leader, they balance head and heart. Let's bring this to life. Imagine you're leading a team project and one person keeps missing deadline. The robot leader looks at them and says, here's a spreadsheet of your failures. Fix it. No empathy, just cold hard facts, right? And then the overfeeler, they are like, oh my gosh, I know you have been struggling. Let's push the deadline away. See, no accountability, just a big emotional hug. The balanced leader pauses, takes a deep breath, and says, okay, let's look at the facts. You have missed the last three deadlines. What is going on here? Is there something I'm missing? And how can we fix this together? Now you see the difference. The balanced leader uses logic to clarify the issue, but adds emotion to connect with the person. That's where trust happens. That's where solutions live. And here's the thing, leading with just logic is like eating oatmeal for breakfast every day. Sure, it's technically healthy, but nobody is excited about it. And leading with just emotions, that's like frosting for breakfast. Fun at first, but then you're crashing by 10. The sweet spot, it's like the avocado toast. Practical, satisfying, and just bogey enough to keep people interested. Now, let's zoom out for a second. This head versus heart dynamic is not just happening in your office, it's everywhere. Take the debate going on about AI and human creativity. Companies are asking, can we replace human writers, designers, or even leaders with AI? The logic says yes, AI is faster, cheaper, and never needs a coffee break. But the emotion, the human side says, wait a second. What about creativity? What about connection? What about, being human? Now, the companies that get it right, they are the ones finding balance. They are using AI to streamline tasks, but they're keeping humans at the center for creativity and emotional intelligence. It is a perfect example of head and heart working together. And as a leader, that is your job too, to know when to trust the data and when to trust your gut. So, how do you start balancing logic and emotion in your decisions? So, here's a quick, simple trick. Pause. I call it the leadership buffer wheel. Before you react, take 5 seconds to breathe. Let your logic catch up to your emotions, or vice versa. Because if you don't pause, you are either going to respond like a robot with zero empathy or an emotional wreck who is crying in the break room over a printer jam. See, neither is a good look. But when you balance head and heart, you are not just making better decisions, you are building trust. People don't follow robots, And they don't trust leaders who are all over the place emotionally. They follow leaders who can do both. Leaders who can look at the facts, acknowledge the feelings, and inspire their teams to move forward. So, whether you're deciding how to handle missed deadlines, debating the role of AI on your team, or just figuring out what to order for lunch, remember the sweet spot is where logic and emotions meet. And that's where great leadership lives. Let's get into the meat of this episode, or the tofu, if you prefer that. How do you actually find the leadership sweet spot where logic and emotion work together like a perfect choreographed dance? It's not magic and it's definitely not guesswork. It's what I call the balance method. 7 steps to help you navigate any tough leadership moment. Think of it as your leadership yoga flow. It keeps you grounded, flexible, and way less likely to snap in half when someone drops a last minute crisis into your lap. So let's break this down step by step. And don't worry, I've got jokes to keep it fun and practical tips to make it stick. First up, breath. It sounds simple, right? But let me tell you, this one step can save you from entire leadership disaster or humanity disaster I've shared in almost every podcast. The moment we talk about being mindful, we start with that 2 or 3 deep breath. What are we doing? We are just trying to activate our prefrontal cortex and becoming the observer in the moment. So here is how it works. When you are in heat of an emotional charged moment, hit the pause button. Take 5 seconds to breathe. You wouldn't text your ex in the middle of an emotional meltdown. So don't lead like that either. I call it leadership buffer wheel. It gives your logic time to catch up to your emotions or your emotions time to chill out so you don't respond like either a robot or a wreck. Let's say your team just missed a huge deadline and your first instinct is to fire off an email title, "Why are we like this?" Take 5 seconds, breathe. You will thank yourself later when you're not apologizing for accidentally ceasing the entire company. All right, next step, knowledge. Acknowledge, get into their shoes. Yes, even if those shoes are Crocs. Ask yourself, what is driving their behavior? Maybe they're not lazy. Maybe they are downing in hidden tasks. Maybe they are not ignoring your instructions. Maybe they didn't understand them. This does not mean you're excusing bad behavior, not at all. It just means you're getting the full picture. And let's be honest, empathy does not just make you a better leader, it makes you a better human. Think about it. How many times have you been frustrated at someone only to find out later they were dealing with something you could never see? Empathy is like putting on glasses for your leadership brain. It helps you see clearly before you act. Next step. Now let's get back to the facts with logic first. Before you let your emotions take the wheel, ask what actually happened. What are the numbers? What's the data? No emotions yet, just the receipts. Because if you don't start with facts, your feeling will write Netflix drama nobody asked for. Seriously, you'll be out there imagining worst case scenarios that don't even exist. So maybe your team missed a deadline and your first thought, they don't care about the project. But the facts, they say the delay happened because 3 team members were sick and the client changed the scope halfway through. So facts first, feelings later. So now that you have got your logic, it's time to add emotions and ask yourself, how will this decision feel to me? How will this decision feel to my team? What is the human impact here? Remember, no matter what decision you're making, even if it's deciding who gets the last slice of pizza, there's always a human on the other side of the decision. Logic tells you what's happening. but emotions tell you why it matters. And if you're leading people, you need both. And this is where you step back and think, what is the ripple effect of the decision? How will it land? Will it build trust or will it make people feel undervalued? See, adding emotion doesn't mean you're making a soft decision. It means you're making a human one, a one for the human. So now, next step is you're navigating options with 80-20 rule. Decision should be 80% logic, 20% emotion. Think of it like a protein shake with whipped cream on top. It fuels you, it fuels you, but it's still human enough to enjoy. Now, too much logic, you are a robot and your team feels like cogs in a machine. Too much emotion, you are running never-ending group therapy session where deadlines are optional. The 80-20 rule, that's the sweet spot. It is where you can say, here is the data, and here is how we are going to make it work for the people involved. Then, next step is to communicate clearly. And there's not enough I can talk about how many times we make mistake on communicating clearly. Say what you mean, no jargons, no hiding behind buzzwords. Clarity is kindness. Your team does not need a TED talk. They need a plan and what to do next. So instead of saying, we are going to synergize our efforts to maximize deliverables, let's try, work together to hit the deadlines by Friday. See, when you communicate clearly, you say your team to be more focused and you save your team from confusion. And yes, you save yourself from 1,000 follow-up emails asking, wait, what do you actually want us to do? And then the final step, evaluate after. Once the decision is made, check in. Did it land? Did it build trust? Did people walk out of the room inspired? Or did they start updating their resumes? Because here's the thing, balance is not one and done, it's a dance. You're constantly adjusting based on what the team wants and what they don't. And the only way to know if you are on the track is to evaluate. So let's recap. Breath, breathe, acknowledge, logic, add emotion, navigate, communicate, evaluate, right? Breathe, acknowledge, first logic, add emotion, navigate, communicate, evaluate. Without it, you're either Spock or all logic, no heart, or you're the person crying at Starbucks because they misspelled your name. The goal, be neither. Be the leader your team wants to follow. So the balance method is not just a checklist, it's a mindset. It's about showing up as a leader who can think clearly, feel deeply, and make decisions that inspire trust and action. So next time you are in a tough situation, remember, hit the pause, get the facts, lay in empathy, and lead like the rock star you are. All right, now some fun stuff. We have all worked with these two extreme leaders, and if you haven't, well, you might be one of them. So let's take example of the robot. This is a person who tracks bathroom breaks in Excel. I'm not kidding, I've seen it. They will spend and send you calendar invite for a 3-minute chat and that get annoyed if you smile too much in the meetings. I worked with a guy. He had a rule. No small talk before 10 a.m. Like, what are we, machines? One time I said good morning and he responded, let's stay on task. I was just trying to be human, Greg. See, these leaders are great at systems and processes, but they miss the big picture. Our teams and people around us are not machines. People don't get inspired by perfectly optimized workflows. They get inspired by leaders who care. Now let's talk about the overfeeler, the leader who throws a team-wide birthday party for a plant and cries when the coffee machine breaks. I had a boss once who was so into team vibes that we spent more time on emotional check-ins than actual work. One time, we are behind on a major deadline because she decided we needed healing circle to talk about why we are not vibing with the new office paint color. I'm not kidding, I'm serious. Overfillers are amazing at empathy, but they struggle with boundaries and accountability. You can't run a team on feelings alone because at some point someone has to, do the work. And then there are the unicorns, the balanced leaders, like Ted Lasso with a Gantt chart, heartfelt but focused. They know when to lean into empathy and when to hold people accountable. They can say, I see you are struggling, but let's figure out how to hit this deadline together. See, balanced leaders are not perfect, but they're intentional. They take a moment to breathe, look at the facts, and use emotional intelligence to guide their decisions. They are the kind of leaders you want to work for and the kind of leader you can become. Here's an example outright. Let's take Elon Musk versus Tim Cook. Musk, classic robot leader. He's all about data and efficiency, but sometimes it feels like he's running his team like they're machines. Tim Cook, on the other hand, is a balanced leader. He's focused on results, but he also prioritizes people. Apple's success is not just about innovation, it's about a culture of trust and collaboration. The takeaway, you don't have to pick between results and relationships. The best leaders know how to balance both. So, if leadership were a spectrum, you would have Greg, the bathroom spreadsheet guy, on one end, and the plant birthday crier on the other. And in the middle, there is where the magic happens. That's where you are not just managing people, you're inspiring them. So, let me ask you, where do you fall on the spectrum? Are you more a robot leader, overfiller, or you're working toward the sweet spot balance? So here's the challenge. Think about one decision you have made recently. Did you lead and lean too much on logic, or did you lead and lean too much with emotions? What would you do differently if you aimed for balance? Give me your answers. I want to hear your stories because here's the truth. Balance is not about being perfect, it's about being intentional. And when you lead with intention, you inspire trust and action. So let's keeping forward, balanced, and bold. Now, how to build trust without becoming a micro manager is the next step, right? Here's challenge next week. I promise it'll be worth it. Apply the balance method on one tough decision or conversation. Reflect on your leadership style. Be honest. Be brutally honest with yourself. Are you more Spock running purely on logic or Oprah pouring out all the feels? Both are great in their own ways, but neither is the sweet spot. And remember, when I talk about mindful practices, it's all about becoming observer. You have to become the observer of three things. Where do you naturally gravitate to start with? More logic, more emotions. And what is that dance of the two that you can manage to get to a point where you become more effective, right? So reflect on your leadership style, think about it. Use just one step of balance method in your next sticky situation. Just take a deep breath before you react. Or stepping into someone else's shoes, even if they cross, right? Just seriously try to step and see what changes. One step. The fun part, DM me on LinkedIn with your results where you balance. Did you lean too far into logic or too far into emotions? Did you totally nail it or have a hilarious fail? I want to hear it all. Also, leadership is a journey, not a destination. If you have not been following us on LinkedIn, follow us because there are some real good stories being shared by a lot of listeners, and I would love to listen more from you. Coming back to the basics, I share a new technique, a new framework, a new step every week. But I have reminded this, I've had a few DM back and forth, and I have reminded this. And again, I'm putting this as a reminder. When it comes to mindfulness, mindful leadership, the reason we use the word mindful is because mind is already full. The five emotions that we have, the five senses that we have, brain is already collecting all the information from all our senses 24/7, even when it's sleeping, right? So the brain that has all this information and the intelligence, being mindful means becoming the observer of the intelligence that is tapped in our brain. It is stored in our brain. Can we leverage it? Can we tap into that intelligence? And how do you do that? By becoming balanced. Taking that deep breath, pausing for a second, getting to your logic part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, and becoming a true observer of what is happening around us, with us, in us. When you take 3 deep breaths, your nervous system gets focused along with your prefrontal cortex. And that is what we have termed as presence power. That is the power that you get when you become completely present in the moment, the observer. The moment you become present in the moment and a true observer, the first thing that happens is your amygdala, that is your fight and flight part of your brain, calms down, and it allows you to let your emotions balance, right? So your prefrontal cortex gives you the presence power, then you get emotional agility because your emotions calm down. Now, what happens when your emotions calm down? That's where the balance, 80-20, right? You have the data, you have the logic. Now you balance your emotions, you bring it together, and now you have the biggest cognitive opportunity that you can think of. Now, if you're running all on data and no emotions, you still don't have the cognitive balance to make decisions or take actions. And if you have no data, all emotions, well, you're already running on the fight and flight mode, in the crisis mode, right? So again, reflect on your leadership style. Be honest with yourself on whether you're running purely on logic or pouring out all the feels. And just use one step of the balance method this week. Maybe just a breath, become observer before you react, or step back, think about somebody else on the other side of the decision, get in their shoes and see what can be changed. Don't forget to grab the purpose fact assessment from the site. It's an awesome tool to find your true inner purpose. Next week, we are diving into how to inspire trust without turning into a micromanaging control freak, because nobody wants to be that leader. Until then, lead loud and proud, and above all, lead with balance. I'm Singh, and you're watching Mindful Leadership on the Transformation Network. Till next week.
Thank you for watching Mindful Leadership Transforming Lives. With me, your host, Singh. We are honored to have you join us on this journey to explore the transformative power of mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and authentic leadership. Tune in every week on transformationtalkradio.com at noon Pacific on Tuesdays, where we will continue to explore how mindful leadership can create a ripple effect of positive changes in your life and lives of those you influence. This show is dedicated to helping you lead with purpose, presence, and passion. Whether you're navigating the complexities of business, building strong connection with your team, or striving to make a meaningful impact in the world around you. To learn more about the show, access additional resources, or dive deeper, visit singpowerupcoach.com. Remember, leadership isn't just about what you do, it's about who you are. Let's continue to transform lives together, one mindful moment at a time. See you next week.